following presentation is an Elmar Studios production.
Welcome back, Truth Seekers from around the world. It's time for another edition of the Flat Earth Files, and finally, after so much time, I have a small window this morning of opportunity to play some of your voicemails, read some of your emails, and I wanted to talk a little bit about Sonar, and is that something that could really work on a globe? And then we'll close out with an interesting story about the measurable non-curvature of the flat Earth. Kind of a potpourri edition, but it's something that I've been meaning to catch up on for quite some time. I've been doing my best to keep up with all of the emails. We've gotten such tremendous feedback from all the listener interviews. Tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, I'll be interviewing Matthew. That will drop Sunday night. And then the last two of Season 1 will be Michelle and JJ. They will drop Wednesday and next Sunday, respectively. And then again, we'll be on hiatus for about a week or so, 10 days maybe, recharge the batteries, visit Normie Land for a while. Just you got to get out of the rabbit hole sometimes, recharge, and we'll go again until the Christmas break. I hope everyone is doing well. It is the last day of school here at our home school. It's finals, kind of proctoring, not much to do between tests. So I thought I would slip into the studio and knock out some of these voicemails and emails. So without any further ado, what do you say we get to them? And again, I do appreciate all the kind words and the support. This has turned into, again, I had no idea it would turn into such a popular podcast, and I am very humbled by all the kind words. It is greatly appreciated. I'm very appreciative that we can have these conversations. While we may disagree on a few things, I'm glad to be in a community where folks literally question everything, because now is the time more than ever that we need to have that level of discernment. Okay, let's get started. Our first voicemail is from Luke. Luke, take it away.
Hey, this is Luke from Florida, just listening to Lauren here on your latest episode on the ride into work. I just listening to her saying, did anything change when she woke up? And it just made me kind of click with me. Has anyone seen, the rabbit picture, where you look at it one way and it's a rabbit and everyone's looking at it, and then you keep looking at it, and then, now it's a duck. And then once you see that it's a rabbit or a duck, you can go back and forth between the two. But until you see the duck, you can't see it. All you can see is the rabbit. So, just a cool little thing that reminded me of. George, you are awesome. Shout out.
Thanks for that message, Luke. It is greatly appreciated. Sometimes we can beat a dead horse, so they say, but it really goes back to Manly P. Hall's book, The Secret Teachings of All Ages. And he says, let me pull it up here. When the human race learns to read the language of symbolism, a great veil will fall from the eyes of men. They shall know the truth, and more than that, they shall realize that from the beginning, truth has been in the world unrecognized, save by a small but gradually increasing number appointed by the lords of the dawn as ministers to the needs of human creatures, struggling to co-regain their consciousness of divinity. And to an extent, and again, we make it a point not to criticize those who were asleep, because I believe just about every single one of us at one point in our lives were asleep. And you're right. Once you wake up, and again, I do believe there are different levels of awakening. And I think that for me, Flat Earth was the ultimate, and that like a key kind of unlocked my mind. And it is interesting exactly what Luke said. You look at movies differently. You look at television shows differently. Here's what I do. This is very interesting. If you go to Google, I'm going to do it right now. Just put the number 33. I think most people who listen to this podcast understand the numerology involved with the number 33. I do this sometimes. Just hit enter on Google and then click on news and see how often the number 33 is planted in the news. The very first one, and this is very interesting. I just covered Warren Buffett last week in regards to, the Franklin child cover up and the connections there. There was a gentleman who was a guest speaker. The Berkshire Hathaway conference, the annual speech last week, and this guy called out Warren Buffett and Bill Gates, because Buffett and Gates are best buddies, right? Most of Gates' funding comes from Warren Buffett, and this guy starts saying, hey, why are you guys friends with Bill Gates? How many times did you fly on the plane? This guy got carried out and arrested, and he was an invited speaker. The very first story, Japanese stocks has hit a 33-year high. Warren Buffett helped. 33-year-old killed in fatal crash. It's interesting. Not all stories involve the number 33 directly, but it's very interesting how you see the world and the news, and particularly even movies, which I'll get to in a little bit. I think another listener mentions a movie, and even the most, I guess you would call them B movies, have this symbology in it. We'll get to that in a minute. I have two messages from Simon, so let's play those.
Yeah, g'day, George. It was super exciting to hear your podcast the other day where you talked to the Aussie lady and remarked on my comment about flight paths. I'm probably going to run out of time on this recording, but I want to tell you a quick story. About 10 years ago, I moved back to my parents' place. I was getting out of a bad marriage, and I went outside to look at just to go out at night. It was on a farm, and I looked up in the sky and I saw this big white disc, and it was the same size as the moon, but it seemed flatter, and it was the same color as the moon in terms of brightness, but there was no discoloration on it. It was just a pure white glow. And it was traveling from north to south, and it seemed like the same speed as an airline, a jet airline. But it seemed flat. So it was the same size, but it seemed flat. It didn't seem spherical. And of course, I rushed in to tell my parents, and they just told me there was something wrong with me, and they were very angry with me. And I went back outside, and it was gone. And I don't take drugs or anything like that. I don't hallucinate. That was something I actually saw about 10 years ago. So keep up the good work, my friend. Take care. God bless you.
And that's, again, just the first audio clip from Simon. That was from 2 weeks ago. And again, welcome to being a truther, right? We try to tell our family members, our friends, these certain things, and they're like, They try to deflect it. This is what I've noticed over the year. They say, you're crazy, right? When you try to tell them the truth about 9/11 or the Gulf of Tonkin or Desert Storm, the lies, on and on and on, right? We've talked about all of these, Oklahoma City, Waco. What happens is when you present this information to them, it challenges their norms, right? It challenges their belief system that has been in place anywhere from, say, 20 to 70 or 80 years old, depending how old the person is. So I think it's human nature for these people to go on the defensive, right? They put up their shield. You're crazy, right? You are out of your mind. And that is more of a defensive measure, again, challenging people's programming, however old they are. And again, I found that the older you get, the harder it is to crack that nut. So, and again, shout out to you for even trying to share that, because I think there is a lot of people out there who, if they witnessed what you did, they probably wouldn't even tell anyone for fear of the same reaction that you got. All right, Simon, let's play your other audio clip. This was from just yesterday.
Hey George, here's a quick one. I've often wondered why they made you close the window blinds, the plastic blinds on an airplane when you take off, a commercial plane. But what if it was because they didn't want you to notice the fact that the horizon does not gradually go into a slight curve as you gain altitude? Because that's what you would expect on a sphere. It would originally appear flat, and as you climb in altitude, it would gain a greater degree of curvature. But by closing the blinds, you don't notice that. I don't know, it may not be the case, but it's just an interesting thought. Thanks, mate. You're doing a fantastic job. God bless you.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for your messages. And it's interesting, when I first heard that, I think I was going through the messages last night trying to get everything together after my other podcast. I thought that's unique. And again, as a truther, these are the things we think of, right? Most people, when we get on the plane, we're wondering about how long is it going to be before we get our little glass of Pepsi and our complimentary 4 peanuts, right? As truthers, we think of these things, right? Why are we closing the windows? And I thought to myself, yeah, why? I mean, I have flown hundreds of thousands of miles in the air. So, of course, for these type of things, I do go to Google. When I'm researching certain things that go against the narrative, I use either Yandex or Brave, because now even DuckDuckGo has been infiltrated, right? So according to Shiphole, which had the top story on Google, over 9 million results, they say, like everything else, right? With the COVID scamdemic and everything else, it's for your own safety. They say, if anything happens during takeoff and landing, which is true, is the most riskiest stage of every flight, they say then your eyes will already be used to the dark or the light outside. And you'll be more able, or I should say, you'll be able to react more quickly. That's also the reason why the lights in the cabins are dimmed for takeoff and landing. So their answer is simply that your eyes will be adjusted. So that's the official narrative. I can't say whether it's true or false, but a very interesting take. And thank you, Simon, for your messages. And we have 2 messages from Jim. Let's play the first one.
George, I was thinking about being blessed with the spirit of discernment, or just blessed with the gift of discernment. I remember being very young. I'm not special. I didn't mean to say it like I think I'm special. I just remember being very young at school and them talking about evolution. I knew that was BS. I knew it when I was very young. There was multiple things during my education that I just knew was wrong. It maybe from being a background in church, but it wasn't just about God. I just knew it was wrong. And let me tell you, I'm unprankable. You walk up to me and tell me some line, I won't believe it. I mean, it better be true. I'm telling you, I'm not 100% on that, but I just think that some of this isn't education. Some of it is, you just inherently know things ain't true. When I heard about COVID, I immediately I said, bull crap. No way. This is all a lie. My wife was very nervous about COVID. I kept trying to tell her, babe, this is bullshit. Sorry for my language. I said, I don't know what they're doing, but they are up to something.
They were up to no good is what they were. And there was an article that came out, forgive me for not having it in front of me, but I think it's come out in the last week, and it's been cited on many sources that, most of the people who died early on, we're talking about that March to May timeline, were killed with being intubated and the remdesivir. And that, of course, caused the high amount of deaths, which the news then reported to the people, and obviously made poor, folks even more scared. And that's what this agenda is all about. There's a story going on today, and they put these stories in the media on purpose. I'm just going to mention this real quick, and we'll get right back to Flat Earth. But there was a story about a month ago where the West, that means, the United Kingdom and the United States, were going to provide Ukraine with DU ammunition, that is depleted uranium. It's very dangerous. If you don't understand how dangerous it is, that is regarded by many people as the reason for Gulf War syndrome. And it is also the reason, do not look this up if you've got a weak stomach or but there was something called the Children of Fallujah. During the escalation 06-07, there was a lot of white phosphorus and depleted uranium rounds used, and an entire generation of children. Stillborn rates were, I think, close to 20% for a while there, and the amount of deformities. Again, don't look it up it's very tough to look at. I've had a lot of sleepless nights just thinking about it. But if you all remember that explosion, again, the media only covers what it wants to. There was a huge explosion. The Russians hit an ammo depot that had the last couple shipments of weapons from the West, United States, UK, etc., that had depleted uranium in it. There is reports over the last 24 hours that there is radioactive clouds headed west over Europe. So, again, discernment is what it's all about. I don't even remember why I went to that story. There was some kind of correlation, but when I talk about these things, you get angry. But let's go to Jim's got another message here.
Wow, it's so interesting. Your guest just mentioned something that was said on the movie Thor. And I was watching Avengers, one of the Avengers movies with my daughter, and Thor's brother, Loki, he ordered the humans to get on their knees. And he said, isn't this how you enjoy your life? Or, this isn't word for word, of course. He said, humans love to be subjugated. You love to be ruled. You will never find joy and freedom. Get on your knees. And everybody got on their knees. And later on in that same movie, one of the Avengers was talking about the intelligence agencies. And, he said, what kind of intelligence agency fears investigation or, something like that? It is just so mind-boggling. I know sometimes you just look for things to connect from one to the other, but when you're awake and you start watching some of these Hollywood productions, you see so much in there that, I don't know if they're poking at us or hinting at us or I don't know, or we're just jumping to conclusions. But I just thought it was interesting and wanted to drop that, George. Love your episodes. Good job.
Thanks again, Jim. And by the way, I think the reason I was talking about the Ukraine thing was, once again, to keep people in fear and dependent on the government. Whether or not this was an organic story, true story, or something that they're making up so they can use in another emergency down the road remains to be seen. But isn't it interesting that the second message we just played ties right back into the very first message we played with Luke, right? It's how you see things. And I want to mention, I don't have separate accounts on Instagram. If you want to follow me on Instagram, it's under my other podcast. It's at The Fact Hunter. And we watch older movies. We watch older TV if we're going to kick back and relax. we were watching this. My wife is a huge Jackie Chan fan. There's this Jackie Chan movie from 1985, one of his first movies, like in America. It was called The Protector, and the scene is insane. If you follow me and go back, you'll see it's from a week ago. There's a big explosion on the water. Basically, there's a boat chase in the Hudson River, and this boat explodes right in front of the World Trade Center towers. So you see that the two towers, a huge explosion, and this smoke billowing right in front of the towers. And then the scene pans to the towers from the backside. They come down, and you see two columns, very similar to the two columns we talk about, Joachim and Baez, and they're carrying a coffin. The symbology in that 10 seconds of video is just, it's insane. And of course, it got 33 likes, right? Of course. So check that out if you get a chance. Let's go back to our messages. We have Kenny.
Hello, George. This is Kenny from Okanagan, British Columbia, Canada. Something you might find a little interesting. 90 seconds won't even begin to touch how the Bible tells the date that Jesus was born, but it's a good conversation. But he was born on September 11th, 2 BC, which is quite interesting because Jesus brought in freedom and deliverance, and he went after the oppressive leaders of the Jewish state, or the repressive leaders, period, and went after them to take the load off the people. Like when he was saying, you put the burdens on them, but not put it on yourself. Well, after September 11th, on Jesus's birthday of 2021, which would make Jesus think 3, interesting, but that brought in worldwide, or the start of worldwide oppression, and gave the liberties to put back all the burdens on the people and take it off the leadership group. So it's quite interesting how September 11th also has a very good biblical starting point too. But it's just another coincidence for your jar.
Yeah, another another coin in the old coincidence jar, and there is quite a bit of information out there regarding when Jesus was born. There's some folks out there who say, again, September 11th. Some people say 2 BC, 3 BC. Fell on a Wednesday. Of course, if that were the case, again, we talk about the mockery of God and Jesus, right? Everything that God creates, Satan perverts. So if that were the case, it wouldn't surprise me. The reason, beyond the symbology of 9/11, of course, 9/11 becoming the national emergency number in 1968. And you look at everything that happened in 1968, which of course was 33 years prior to 2001. But with MLK, RFK, the Twin Towers being erected, the New York Jets, win their only Super Bowl in 1968. So many. There's a list of like 40 things, just insane things. Of course, 2001, A Space Oddity, or a Space Odyssey. I'm thinking of David Bowie's Space Oddity. And many people think the moon landing, of course, was filmed during that. So thank you very much for that great message, Kenny. We have, I think, two more. This one is from Raul.
Hello, George, and other flat earth people out there. I was excited to see that I had received a message from you sometime earlier today about perhaps doing a miniature podcast on your new flat earth radio, and that would be tremendous. I've planned on starting a podcast for some time, just haven't really launched it off, but you sending me that message has really reinvigorated me to pursue this. Thinking about calling it Firma Mental and giving some people food for thought about some of these subjects that you talk about on this show. I love your podcast, both the Fact Hunter and Flat Earth Files, and I look forward to our two interviews that are coming up, one for Fact Hunter and the other for Flat Earth Files. Much love, my friends. Keep seeking the truth.
Thanks for that, Raul. And yeah, we have a 24/7 radio player on my other website that we will be embedding shortly on the Flat Earth Files as well. So if you want other, truth information out there, you'll be able to check that out. But what I'm doing, if you'll notice, I like this to be a platform for everyone. So I had put out there, if anybody, maybe you have a lot on your mind and you want to get it out there, but you don't really have the time or want to do your own podcast per se. If you would like to, record something and have it put into the rotation of our, Truth Radio that streams 24/7, just shoot me an email. I'll send you a link. And as long as you know how to record something to MP3, I have a share file. You simply click on a link, drop it in there, and you're done. It takes 2 seconds, literally. It's completely effortless. And, right now we just have a lot of like Bill Cooper, Little Art Bell, those type of things, classic audio in there. But I already have an entire catalog of my podcasts. It doesn't make sense to just put my old podcasts in there. So if you're interested, if you're passionate about talking about the truth, let me know and I'll send you a link, and you're more than welcome to have your own voice played on, our fact. It's called Fact Hunter Radio, but it's just Truth Radio 24/7, 365. And we're going to put a link on the Flat Earth Files homepage as well. So if you're looking for something to listen to, you can check it out. And again, if you would like to be a part of it, just shoot me an email, theflatearthfiles@gmail.com, and you're more than welcome. All right. Our last audio of the day comes from the one and only Snake Turbanhead, who is very active on the website.
Hello, George. This is Snake Turbanhead, the Realm Earth Pagan. I wanted to ask, why is it said that water is always level in the flat Earth community? We can clearly see if we put a drop of water on our countertop that it is curved, it is not level. And if an ant were to walk up to it, it would look like a hill of not so level water. So why is it always said that water is always level? Shout out to my friends Lillian and the great Mormon Rishi.
Shout out to Lillian and the great Mormon Rishi. And shout out to Snake Turbanhead. And again, water always finds its level. I understand if you take a droplet and put one droplet on there, it's going to be round. However, if you take even just the smallest glass of water, you pour it out, the water is looking for its level and will find the shape it's seeking, but it's not going to. If you stick it on a ball, what's it going to do? It's going to roll right off, right? So what we mean is the water always finds, it always seeks its level. If you put it in a glass and turn it left and right, you will see the water is seeking its level. But I get what you're saying. Again, shout out to everyone who left tremendous messages, and thank you for everyone, including Snake Turbanhead, for your activity in the website. Again, that is theflatearthfiles.com. Check out the forum, check out the chat rooms. I'll be putting more videos in the video site, and we'll try to keep it fresh. And again, we'll eventually, in the next week to 10 days, I'll get that radio player on the homepage. So if you want to check that out as well, but I'm going to freshen up the audio that's on there. And again, if you'd like to be a part of it, send me an email, theflatearthfiles@gmail.com. I'll get you a link and you can save it as an MP3 and I'll drop it right in the radio player. Okay, let's move along. So many emails. I'm just going to read 3 or 4 of them because there's just so many of them. But we're going to start with Wolf. It says, "Hi, George. I've been listening to your podcast for a while now, and I've been researching and reading the Bible a lot. I'm absolutely convinced that the earth is flat. Like many, when I first heard of the flat earth, I pictured a boat running off the edge of the ocean, and it was the most absurd thing." Again, absolutely, Wolf. That is how through the media, through, again, every movie you watch, it starts with the ball spinning. They have programmed us to believe that. And like many, he says, "I thought flat earthers were stupid and incredibly ignorant. How wrong I was. I have read Genesis many times over and have just been struggling with trying to really understand it all. Just now coming to realize the depth and magnitude of all the lies. I opened my Bible and started rereading Genesis and was gobsmacked to find literal proof in the very second sentence of the Bible that the earth is flat. I mean, how did I never see this? Literally, Genesis 1:2 says that the earth was created without form. I looked up the definition of form and it says having shape. So without form literally means without shape. A round globe definitely has shape. Literally, God told us literally in the very, very beginning of the Bible that it's flat. How did we not see that? I really wrestle with having like-minded people to talk about with. I do have one friend who's a flat earther, but the handful of family I tried to talk about thought I was nuts. Well, welcome to the club, brother. It's like taboo to talk about because people think that you're crazy. My mother is totally against it and wrote to me this essay of literal BS that she regurgitated from the internet, and it made no sense whatsoever. On top of that, she had no scriptural support for any of her claims. I spent a week and a half and responded to all her claims and even provided scriptural evidence for everything and included diagrams and pictures and videos. I spent so much effort on it. I even showed the 666 math of the globe earth. I thought for sure she will see it when she read it. I hid three secret passwords within the pages of what I wrote. She responded and said she read it, but couldn't provide the passwords. She literally couldn't even be bothered with it. She just wants to stay in her bubble, and it was incredibly disappointing. I said, all I want you to do is read it all the way through, and I promise not to say anything more about Flat Earth unless you ask me. And she wouldn't even give me the courtesy of reading it through. He says, will this get any easier, George? Thank you for your podcast. He said, I wanted to make a recommendation. Not that you already have enough on your plate. Can you add a page to your website with all the videos and movies and or websites that you mention on the podcast? And I think I do have a page for videos on there, but you're right. When I mention them or refer to them, I need to get them on the website. And actually, I need to embed the one from Rumble I have on there, The Lost History of Flat Earth, which I have on my Rumble channel, which incredibly, I think it's just 2 months old and there's 20,000 views. It's incredible. There is certainly a lot of folks out there who are seeking the truth. You know, we're getting 100,000 downloads a month. You're seeing the video numbers. I think much of this is intentional. Once again, I'll say it once, I'll say it 1,000 times. They overplayed their hand with COVID, and they did create a bit of a mass awakening. We need to keep the momentum going, doing the podcast, doing videos. And as you heard in the last two podcasts, we're trying to come up with something with cards to hand out, very subtle with a website. They click on it, and there's just a 2-minute video that grabs people's attention. Hey, wake up. You're being lied to about everything. Look around you. Use your eyes, use your ears, use the senses, use your God-given discernment. We are lied to on such a grand scale. You are free. Okay? So will it get any easier, Wolf? or yeah, Wolf. We'll keep it. I don't know if she wanted me to use her name, who was also a Sabbath keeper, or she says, at least I try. We all do our best, right? Will it get any easier? No, it doesn't get any easier. In some cases, it gets more frustrating. And again, for me, when I first woke up to this, you know, my natural reaction was, I want to tell everybody. And you assume, because of your level of excitement, that everybody would be excited with you. Because if you show up to the family party this weekend and you tell everybody that you just won the lottery, everybody's going to be, hey, that's awesome. Oh, man, do you remember that one time when your car broke down and I picked you up? You know, people are going to start reminding you of all the times they helped you out, right? Because they want a chunk of that change. Or maybe you came across, hey, you know, I got 4 tickets to the Phillies game this weekend. Or I got some tickets to the football game in the fall. Everybody wants to be your friend. But when you have something as powerful as knowledge, and again, this isn't like you heard a couple of the people left on their voice messages. This isn't us saying, hey, we got the secret knowledge. We're smarter than you. You want to be a part of the club? That's not it whatsoever. It's just that, like Manly P. Hall said, right? We have the ability to see things that some people don't. And there's different reasons for it happening. You know, I believe that God sequenced my life to happen the way it did so I could see things later. I had a really rough time from like 1994 and 1995. 2 very, very rough years. Horrible years. Wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. But because of that, hitting the rock bottom and then coming back up, right? I was able to see things. Some people have pampered lives and they don't ever take the time. I know people personally who have pampered lives, never really had a rough day in their life, but they're more worried about, you know, all the reality TV shows on television, because sometimes it takes struggle to realize the truth. And I think that's a lot of the cases. I get emails all the time from people who were literally on death's door, you know, on the, what did they say? Death's doorstep, right? and sometimes for many of us, it takes these significant events for us to open our eyes. So there you go. It doesn't get any easier, but that doesn't mean we quit either, right? That means you go back to the drawing board and try to use different avenues of approach. Sometimes, again, when you try to force feed a baby, that baby spits that food right back at you. But if you just leave little treats, like for your dogs, right? They'll find the treat. They'll seek it out. Comparing our family members to leaving treats, but you get what I'm talking about. Less is more. Just like they say, you know, absence makes the heart grow fonder, right? There's more than one way to skin a cat. We just have to be creative. I remember David Weiss, he and some friends spent some money on some billboards. And it was very simple with a website address. That's what we need to start doing. People are naturally curious. They really are. But if you run up to someone and start saying, OMG, the earth is flat, 9/11 was an inside job, blah, 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 people are going to say, whoa, bro. And again, this all goes back to the truth seekers at the top of the food chain who do silly things. So when people hear quote unquote conspiracy theories, that's where their mind goes, right? Okay. So all I can say to you is keep hammering away. Keep doing what you do. Be creative. Try different avenues of approach. And if you can break through to just one person, remember this. There's a good chance that that person can break through to one person, and that's how we win. That is how we win. Just like that old shampoo commercial, and they tell two people, and they tell two people, and they tell two people, right? That's how we win. So thank you for that. Let's get to the next email. Take me just a second to find it. There was 3 more, I think, I had set aside. And I know it's not much compared to, the hundreds we get, but this one is from Tommy. And it says, George, first, your podcast has been refreshing and made me realize how there are many folks out there with similar points of view. It says, I'll share my story with you in hopes that it can resonate with someone out there. At 35 years old, I've gained valuable insight throughout the last few years because of the past I hail from. I grew up in Chicago, and at 14 years old, I began a long road of substance abuse and a comfort-seeking behavior. I was never interested in academics, as something always felt off about it. I was the person who never applied himself in school and would often hear how much untapped potential I had from teachers. I think many of us have heard that before, for sure. Since I ended up going to college in South Dakota, it was the only place I was accepted. For whatever reason, I felt obligated to go to college, and it was expected. In my world, I was expected to graduate high school and go to the military. That lineage went back, at least we traced it back to as far back as the Civil War. Said I had a fake ID and was introduced to the drug-seeking crowd immediately, and my addiction kept growing. You've heard this story a million times. A kid starts with smoking weed and graduates to heroin. That was me. It started slow and progressed. And there's a little bit of a dangerous thing going out. There's a lot of young kids using marijuana. They've made it so easy. Back in the day when I went to high school in the 80s, you knew if somebody was smoking weed because, it smelled like a skunky weed, right? Nowadays, they make it to, these kids have these little things and they can vaporize it, like vape it, and you don't even know. Kids are getting baked. And again, the thing I worry about is these young children, their brains are still molding, right? They say in some instances, your brain doesn't start or stop developing until you're 25 years old. So you have to be careful with that stuff. Says, I barely graduated college. I ended up switching majors 5 times and settled with addiction counseling because I knew this field like the back of my hand from experiences. These classes were the only ones that I participated in and applied myself while intoxicated. I was receiving packages in the mail that were filled with heroin to keep up my habit. Eventually, these childhood friends ripped me off, so I had to quit using for a while. After graduating, I received an internship at a treatment center that would hire me on as a counselor. At 22 years old and a few months of not using heroin. He said, unfortunately, this was a recipe for disaster. Hindsight is 2020. While visiting my hometown, I decided to use heroin again, but this time I used it with Valium. I ended up sleeping in one position for 16 hours on my back with my knees bent, and I woke up in horrific pain. I was urinating black powdery substance. I was unable to walk, and I had to have an ambulance to make it to my parents' house to get to the hospital. I was told I wouldn't make it through another night because my kidneys were in failure, a condition known as rhabdomyolysis. My parents were advised to make funeral arrangements for their youngest son. That's, quite a stone cold awakening there, right? Says, I was angry when I woke up the next day. I wanted it to be over, and I wanted the pain and suffering to end. So when I woke up, I was simply ungrateful and spiteful. I would be told that I'd never be able to walk, run, jump, skip, or play any sport again. This was devastating to my mindset because sports were one of my only outlets in my childhood. I was in the ICU for 3 weeks and would be injected with Dilaudid the entire time. Maybe it's Daladid. I was high as a kite, and it was the first time I felt the rush of being shot up, and it was the love I never felt, a warm blanket on a cold winter's night. I told my boss that I was suffering from severe dehydration, and I was in the ICU. My clients would send me cards that said, "Get well," and it made me cry. I began physical therapy and slowly had to relearn how to walk and close a fist again. These basic functions seemed impossible, and I had to push through so much pain to do the most basic of functions. I entered the ICU with an associate's degree in opiates and would be released with a master's in injecting pharmaceuticals. I tried returning to my job as a counselor, however. When you don't practice what you preach, it ends in self-sabotage. I was so strung out on opiates, I pawned my work laptop. I was a complete wreck. I lost my job and would stay on a bender for a few more months afterwards. I went to detox centers and treatment centers like they were going out of style. I couldn't stay clean. Also, I wasn't ready to face myself or the man in the mirror. I ended up moving to Denver, Colorado, and relapsed one more time. I went into my last treatment center in 2012, where I was prescribed Suboxone, Klonopin, Adderall, and Cymbalta. If you know anything about these meds, you know they're almost impossible to stop taking. I know Klonopin and there's a few like it. They pass out like candy in the military because, so many soldiers deal with PTSD. I spent the next 8 years in a zombified state while the humans in white lab coats would tell me how great I was doing. They would explain how I wasn't fat at 300 pounds and how as long as I wasn't shooting up on street drugs, I was a success story. And that is the problem I have with big pharmaceuticals. A high bar indeed. The issue was I was telling myself the lies I was being sold, so the feedback loop kept going. It was like I was sitting in a room while the entire world passed me by for those 8 years. I was unable to learn, unable to remember. I had zero motivation, and I was a wreck of a human. In early 2020, I became disgusted with my mediocre body and mind. This got to the point that change seemed like the better option than remaining stagnant. I began to wean myself off of the medications, slowly but surely. This wasn't easy and presented its own set of issues. As the dosages were being lowered, feelings of being alive came back to me. That was something I hadn't experienced since I was 14 years old. I began paying attention to what I ate, and going to the gym and working out every day became non-negotiable. It took me nearly a year to wean myself off the substances. It was well worth it. During the vaccine rollout, COVID obviously, is when my awakening began as I dug into vaccine research. My mind was blown at how many vaccine injuries occurring yearly with just the standard vaccines. The COVID vaccine came along and broke the records, however. My wife was unable to take the advice as the hypnosis was deep. Prior to this, I was an order follower because I didn't want anyone to know about my drug history, so I simply followed orders. The last thing I wanted was confrontation. During this vaccine rollout, air quotes, vaccine, I saw reality as clear as I ever have, and that felt great. The fact that my wife took the bait still upsets me, however. I've learned to leave it in the past. And listen, all of us have loved ones that took the vaccine. And we pray for them and we keep going. That's all we can do. After the vaccine situation, I began digging into terrain theory. And my mind was blown at how logical the theory was. Why was this the first time I've heard of this concept? I was in the early stages of awakening and wasn't a seasoned veteran like I am now. I couldn't wrap my head around how we've all been duped to varying degrees. It took me a long time to accept this and becomes isolating and lonely. Indeed. After terrain theory, I began deep diving into nutrition as I started a gym routine a year earlier. The amount of BS in our food, as you know, is nuts. You are not kidding. You really, when you go grocery shopping, so much of our food, especially even like corn muffins, those type of things, look for that little label on the side. You know, this food contains bioengineered foods, or, you know, it's insane how much stuff we have is bioengineered. I no longer eat that crap and understand the importance of nutrition. Our bodies aren't meant to be stuffed with seed oils and other poison. Tap water is a big problem, unfortunately. It is a huge, huge problem. And more than just, obviously, the stuff they put it to keep us zombified, right? From there, I got to the moon landing. Holy crap. It's laughable at how obviously fake that entire production was, indeed. Then I graduated to flat Earth. It's something I used to laugh at because I pictured the pancake in the solar system that we were taught, and is also right on the Flat Earth Society's page, right? I watched the Level documentary, and that opened my mind to these perspectives, and the law of exposures teaches us, once you're exposed, you can't be unexposed. It's been a journey. I wanted to share this short story. We all know what it's like to be brainwashed and believe in the globe. I was so high and zombified throughout my life. It blows my mind how gullible I was, because the truth is right in front of our faces. Fifth generation warfare is real and is happening, and we are being attacked on all fronts while arguing about the tech. It's ridiculous. I've been clean and sober now for 3 years, and it changed everything about me. Change is possible. If I can do it, anybody can do it. And that's from Tommy. Everybody give Tommy a big round of applause for that. Way to go, Tommy. Clean and sober for 3 years. What a story. What an incredible story. And to share that with us is quite an honor. And keep fighting. You're going to have good days. You're going to have bad days. But eat well, seek the truth, and that's all you can really do. And share the truth. And, there you go. It's just an incredible story. And I'm glad that you shared it with me. And I'm thankful that I was able to share it with the group. Just 2 more emails. This is from Nick. Says, just wanted to email and say thank you for bringing the truth to light, doing this podcast. It took me a while to get to the flat Earth, and also took me relearning what science says about the Earth and how they say it works. As once I left high school and went to college, I never needed to look at the truth on this. The absurdity on how we spin, rotate, and blasting through space is beyond incomprehensible. I was saved when I was 15, and I went to a Christian university for the first time, sad to say, was led by God to read the Old Testament, and had loved it. I'm 34 now, married for almost 8 years, have 3 boys, and my wife led me on to this, and of course I was very skeptical for not taking her seriously. I've been listening to an awesome podcast called Blurry Creatures, and that was eye-opening, and really opened the door for me to question things. So they cover and interview people with experiences, but not just a paranormal podcast, but they bring that with a biblical worldview, which I appreciate, and only care to compare things to the Word of God and the truth. He says they cover Bigfoot, hybrids, Nephilim, etc. That is what set the foundation to help me listen to the flat Earth stuff. He says, I thought 9/11 was an inside job back in high school as I came into a video, like a lot of people, back before YouTube was hijacked by Google. He says he didn't remember the name, but there were certainly a lot of things that didn't add up, and thought the way the towers fell didn't make any sense. I also had a thought that the moon landing was fake since we never went back, which was a huge red flag. Once again, the only technology to ever go backwards. After all this digging and reading the word and asking for discernment, you know I always come back to Satan does the opposite of God. So with the Nephilim, Satan wanted to distort and destroy his work and defile it, which I think is the same with flat earth. Do the opposite, call it a globe, right? Anyway, keep doing what you're doing and doing well. Also, I know the Founded Earth Brothers changed their name due to a negative connotation, the flat earth. So my wife put me on to just calling it God's Earth. And yeah, God's Earth, biblical earth, all great things. Appreciate that, Nick, so much. I don't think I've gotten too many emails. Once again, I think I've mentioned it before, that's how they found the podcast, by just putting flat earth into the search engines on whatever platform they listen to, whether it be Spotify, etc. And I did that with my other podcast, and it took a while for it to recover. So we're on a roll right now, and we're going to keep rolling with it. But thank you so much for the great email. God bless you, and keep doing what you're doing, my friend. This is the very last email. We're going to get to a couple things and wrap it up. This is from Dion. I'm a 61-year-old man writing to you from New Zealand. I've been at least semi-awake for most of my adult life, following some heavy personal introspection as an 18-year-old. This was not drug-induced, but rather the result of TBI. It is apparently common to start asking the big questions post-TBI, and I did. However, I'm fairly new to Flat Earth and have to say that all I wanted to know was what these crazy Flat Earthers believed and why. On typing the subject into the Google machine, one of my favorite sayings, the Google machine, I realized quickly that any real information was being buried, was being shadow banned, or just plain censored. Here in New Zealand, I've noticed that articles keep appearing in the mainstream media that basically equate flat earthers with terrorists. And again, one of the few videos that I do have on Rumble, one of them was Canada's PM, Justin Trudeau. And he compares literally flat earthers to terrorists. And it's it's quite a stretch. And then I think people start to understand, again, if you go to YouTube and put in flat earth, all the first 5-6 videos are going to be people debunking flat earth. They might throw one in there for you, but it's buried. He goes on to say, we have some draconian laws now around hate speech and misinformation. Again, guys, there's no such thing as hate speech. There's either free speech or no free speech. There's no such thing as hate speech. But George, what about no? Because here's the thing. If you will allow them to say, yes, there's a such thing as hate speech, who do you think gets to discern what is hate speech? It doesn't benefit us. There's either free speech or no free speech, no in between. And New Zealand and Australia, really, you saw some of the draconian rules in Canada during COVID, right? I'll never forget this mother in Australia. I think she was a mother of 3, and she posted something on Facebook about a meeting about COVID or something, and the police rolled up to her house and arrested her. I mean, that is some next level 1984 Big Brother, Fahrenheit 451, whatever crazy George Orwell related thing you want to say. It is exactly what this emailer says, draconian laws, like Russia with the gulags, right? By the way, isn't it interesting how we sided with Stalin, who was the biggest mass murderer of the 20th century? Anyway, we have some draconian laws now and hate speech and misinformation. Once again, who gets to discern what is misinformation and what is not, right? Because I'm telling you, I mentioned on my other podcast last night that most of our history books belong in the fiction section of the library, in the fiction section of the bookstore. We're lied to on so many levels. And they did that all on the back of the COVID scam. So eventually I searched and found you guys at the Flat Earth Files and Eric Dubay, where I learned about the curvature of the earth, or the lack thereof, and the formula I could check for myself. So I went down to the shoreline of our Manukau Harbor and looked 8 miles across to the Auckland airport, expecting there, doing the math, to be 42 feet of retaining wall, including the tarmac and airplane fuselages they should be missing from my view. He held his telescope sitting 1 foot off the water level, and it showed me that there is no such curve obstructing the view, and that the formula is wrong. I have had next to no success discussing this observation with friends and family. So, as you can see, guys, with all the emails, there's a common narrative here. Nobody wants to take the time and listen. If you want to talk about Breaking Bad or, sports, people will talk about that all day. And again, it's frustrating, man. It is so frustrating. He says again, next to no success discussing this observation with friends and family, and those who didn't already think I was insane for doubting the COVID narrative and refusing the jab. I might have to rethink my tactics. Yeah. The main reason for this email is to share a thought about a possible reason for the big lie. I might be drawing a long bow, but here it is. Here we go. Under maritime law, if a vessel is floating free, right, it's unanchored, not under power or sail, nobody in charge, then anyone who is able to secure the vessel is able to claim salvage rights and can expect to be recompensated for the value of the vessel and its cargo, or even claim ownership of said vessel. The same happens if a vessel is being attacked by pirates and another vessel comes to its aid and fights off the pirates. The captain of the vessel has a claim of salvage right. Now, space law is based on maritime law. If a large vessel, say planet Earth, was found floating unanchored in the infinite ocean of space, and especially if it was being attacked by pirates, aliens, then someone who could fight off those pirates and take control, Space Force and the New World Order, might have a legitimate claim to ownership of the whole world. It always seems that these evil bastards somehow need our permission or justification to do what they want. With what we know or suspect about Project Bluebeam, would this scenario be beyond the realms of possibility? And that's the thing. We try to think what their next move is, and they're always one step ahead. You just have to be ready. The only thing that would really stuff things up for them would be if everyone stopped believing that we are on a planet spinning around in space, instead believing that the Earth is flat, that it's fixed, it's stationary and under control. He says, I'm not a religious man, but you could insert God here or just say that we have a government and rule of law. No aliens, no other planets. Any attacks must be the doings of men. No wonder they're so desperate to turn people away, even thinking about the nature of Earth. Well, that's it. I've been thinking about this for a couple of weeks, but don't know anyone else I could share it with. Well, we just shared it with a lot of people, and a lot of things are going to resonate with people, especially with trying to share what you find. And you went a step further, Dan. You went down and you did an experiment on your own, and you disproved the curvature theory. And you were excited, and you wanted to share your findings with friends and family. And welcome to the club. Welcome to the stiff arm club, like the Heisman pose, right? Your family gives you the Heisman pose. They stiff arm you when you come in with information that contradicts their beliefs. Keep doing what you're doing, and God bless you. And if you ever want to, I know you said that you're not necessarily a religious man, but if you'd like to have a talk about it, I'd be welcome to bend your ear and send you some information. God bless you. Thank you for sharing that, and keep up the good fight in New Zealand, and keep using the power of discernment that has been bestowed upon you, my friend. Okay, couple other quick things, and we need to move out of here. I have a test to grade here shortly. It's already been an hour. What was the other thing I had? Let's talk about submarines and sonar, and would they really work on a globe, because sonar supposedly can detect targets over 1,000 miles away, and it would seem impossible on a globe because they would be well beyond the curve. And I found this link on Facebook, and I can't cite it. This guy named Catchow Delator posted it 6 months ago, and I'll put the link in the show description for you to check out. This is only about 4 minutes.
During my time in the Navy, it never once occurred to me that there could be any other possibility that we would have to have lived on a ball Earth. So it wasn't in the purview of anyone around me. It was just never even something ever talked about. There's nothing in the literature that I read that told me one way or the other. But in hindsight, this is all in hindsight. It's only when I look back that I can tell you that everything that we've done to measure sound, everything that we do right now in the open market, things that I can talk about, the actual passive acoustic equipment that's available or the active sonar equipment that's available, all of them do rely on the concept of a flat Earth, even though they don't explicitly say that. There's even some specific equipment that I simply just can't talk about, but it really does, only in hindsight. I realized this would only work if we're living in a flat environment. In fact, all of our charts were based off that.
Right. Yeah, and that doesn't surprise me at all, because so were the radar charts that we worked off of. So in sonar, obviously, if you're in a submarine or something like that, what kind of ranging did you have? I mean, how far away could you actually detect targets with the sonar?
Well, technically, you could hear a target for as far away as, say, 1,000 miles.
Wow.
It's gonna depend on there's a SOFAR. There is a channel. You might be familiar with this because the same thing exists in the troposphere, I think. I mean, in the atmosphere, there is a channel where the pressure causes sound to move slower than anywhere else. And underwater, that's met through pressure, temperature, salinity. There's an optimal curve there, which actually causes a slowdown of sound as sound passes through that SOFAR channel. So that channel acts as a sort of an underwater internet for whales, for really anything. Anyone who wants to communicate underwater could pump their sound into that SOFAR channel, and it's going to travel for thousands of miles. To me, that alone is a flat Earth proof. There is a consequence of sound being wrapped around a donut versus sound being able to just permeate straight. However, it's not exact enough where I've gotten in enough arguments with people where I can't just like flip this card over and go, ha, see, here.
Right.
Here's the perfect proof for that. So that's just one element of underwater acoustics. There's really two types of sonar. There's an active sonar and a passive sonar. And so in active mode, you would be sending a pulse or a signal or an oscillation out from your transducer and then listening for the time it took for that pulse to get back. That would give you a very active, not only vector of where your target is, but more specifically, it would give you a distance and a range. And that's really is what's crucial for underwater. Meanwhile, on passive side, all you can really do is detect a vector of where something's coming from. You can't really range it from there. But the primary meat, the stake that I'm bringing to this conversation is that there is something called acoustic shadows. And these acoustic shadows, I'm sure there's the same thing in the radar. There are radar shadows where if you're hitting a direct target, anything behind that target is going to be blind. And it's just simply, it would be the easiest thing in the world for submarines to hide over the curve. I don't see how they would ever be able to be found simply because they could stay low enough on the bottom where there's a hump of earth between them and the person trying to hunt them.
So essentially anything over, say, 10 to 15 miles, which would give you, 60 to 100 foot plus of curvature, theoretically, they would be in that blind spot for the sonar.
Exactly. And what I'm quoting here, this is all standard. You can Google this and look it up. This is just, how any kind of underwater submarine you would buy off the market, their sonar equipment, or if you were to build your own. This is just how transducers work. Yeah, there's going to be shadows, and you're going to be blind behind those shadows, and a hill or a hump at the bottom would be that giant shadow.
Okay, wow. That's very interesting. I never thought about anything like that before.
And that's where it ends right there. And again, I'll have that in the show description as well. I came across 15 NASA research papers that admit flat and non-rotating Earth. This is from 4 years ago, and it even has the links to the papers. The first one, NASA's reference publication number 1207, entitled Derivation and Definition of Linear Aircraft Model Assumes the Earth is Flat and Not Rotating. It was produced in August of 1988. And again, there's 15 of them, and it explains how planes lift off, fly over, and land upon the Earth. And again, this report documents the derivation and definition of a linear aircraft model for a rigid aircraft of constant mass flying over a flat, non-rotating Earth. This is a NASA paper, and all 15 have links to the PDF copies of the paper. If we're spinning, why would it be a flat, non-rotating Earth? The truth is right in front of you, and the truth shall set you free. I'm out of time. I will drop that link in the show description as well about the measurable non-curvature of the flat Earth from the AtlanteanConspiracy.com. And thank you all so much for your emails. Thank you for your voicemails. Again, go to theflatearthfiles.com. On the homepage, you'll see the link there to leave your voice messages. And if you would like to be a part of our 24/7 streaming radio, all you need to do is know how to record an MP3. If you want to make a fancy intro and outro, you're more welcome to it. The more voices we have, I think the more interesting it will be. It'll be streaming on both of my websites, the Fact Hunter and the Flat Earth Files. It's been streaming on the Fact Hunter website for years now. But it's a tool that I pay for, and I would like to make use and give you the opportunity to have your voice there. And if you do it regularly enough, we can even, make it a certain time for you so everybody can tune in at a certain time. But for the time being, it'll just be in a cycle and rotate through. All right, guys, that's it. We're done. Have a great weekend. We have 3 interviews left before a break. Matthews will drop Sunday night, and then next week, Michelle and JJ, and that'll put a wrap to season 1. We'll take a short break, and we'll be back and better than ever, and we will roll through to about mid-December. Thank you, guys. Keep the emails coming, keep the messages coming, and God bless you. Have a safe weekend. Keep your head on a swivel, and until next time, my friends, we'll see you.
You're listening to the Fact Hunter Radio Network.
Just the facts, man.